Hello everyone. And welcome to Paranormal Pathways. Today we are exploring the world of cryptids. From the subreddits r/paranormal and r/cryptids. Links to the original posts are in the description below. Let's dive in and find out exactly what that rustling in the brush really is. My husband was driving down South Carolina back roads, and he encountered something strange. He describes it as a large dog, that's all black and cast no shadow, with the red reflective eyes of a creature in headlights. It looked like it was a void, shaped like a canine, with the eyes. He avoided it, and kept driving, but said he saw the eyes in his rearview mirror for 3 miles, keeping pace with his car at 60 miles per hour. The only thing I can think of that's somewhat similar is the not deer. But it's not close enough. I don't know, just looking for some theories on what that was. Here are some of the comments from this post. Johnny Raman 666 asked, "Where SC? I grew up in Kershaw County." False Impressions commented, "Sounds like the black dog. Supposedly it's a harbinger of death." Dazzlin' Red Dress also commented, "Sounds kinda like Black Shuck, but I don't know if there are any tales from the US." Grey Mares in Space suggested, "Dogman." So, I've seen a good amount of strange and unexplainable things in my life. But the most recent one happened after I last moved across state. I was in the habit of taking late night walks. And everybody who does the same usually has a story of something interesting that they've seen. But one night, I was walking along a jogging path. On one side, a bunch of housing areas. And on the other, a large open field with woods on the other side, from me. To give you a picture of this, there's short street lamps all along this path, and a good ways ahead are a few houses with the woods mentioned before, running behind them. The woods being on my left side. The fence goes to them, then goes left, as does the path. When I was just about nearing them, I saw a creature start running towards the woods. From the corner of the fence. From where I was, it looked like a hairless, tailless, small humanoid that ran on all fours. It ran similarly to how a monkey or chimpanzee would run. Now we have plenty of foxes in that area. It was roughly the size of one. And I was a good distance away from it. But when it got into the woods, I heard all sorts of twigs and branches snapping really loudly. Something a fox wouldn't do. From what I saw, it was sort of a peach paler skin tone. I wasn't scared, more of just confused as to what I had just witnessed. It happened last year, just before winter, and I haven't seen it since. This was in Missouri, if anybody is curious. So I'm new here, and was wondering if anyone could tell me what this might have been. I'm honestly terrified, and might never go outside at night again. Haha. I was walking my dog, a black and white pitty retriever mix, outside before putting him to bed around 11 p.m. It's very dark, as there is a lot of wooded areas around my apartment complex. I usually walk him about half a mile or so, out from the complex to a stop sign and light post at the end of the street, which borders on the woods. Usually, there is nothing out of the ordinary. Just woods and the normal animals, like squirrels and the occasional deer. Sometimes there's that weird heavy feeling, like something is watching you intently. But I mostly ignore it, and we cut our walk short and head home since a brief scan of the area shows nothing is there. Tonight, there was that heavy, watched feeling again. But, when I scanned the woods, there was something there. A dog with glowing yellow eyes that looked exactly like my dog. Down to the heart-shaped white spot on his chest. Standing just past the tree line. Staring directly at us. It looked like it could be his twin, but there was just something off about it. That invoked that feeling of run. My dog definitely saw it too. And was whining and staring at it hard. Usually, my dog is reactive to other large dogs. But he seemed more scared than anything else and wanted to get away. Which is very abnormal behavior for him. After seeing it, I fought that run feeling and walked quickly. But casually back into the gated area, and home without looking back. But listening very hard for anything coming behind or to the sides of us. Instinctively, it felt like the safe thing to do. I don't know why. It seemed like it didn't follow, but who knows? I do know that. I will be skipping nighttime walks for a while, that's for sure. Any ideas on what that might have been? Google was not much help. We live in North Georgia. At the base of the Appalachians. But I didn't grow up here. So I'm not sure of local folklore, for the most part. Appreciate you reading this and sorry if the format is weird. I'm on mobile. Here's some of the comments from this post. Salt Stranger 2237 commented. The most likely culprit does seem to be a skinwalker. Although, since it didn't seem to attempt to communicate, I'll go ahead and throw a secondary option out there. Mind you, it's a bit of a stretch. But, perhaps we don't know as much about doppelgangers as we'd like to think. And they're potentially capable of mimicking animals as well as humans. I do still think it's most likely to be a skinwalker though, going off statistics. Secret Parsnip 5071 also commented. It seems like it was likely a skinwalker. It can change form into whatever animal it wants, or maybe it could have been a demon or alien. As not everything is certain with them. World Corp Clothing chimed in. Appalachians. TF is up with that region. I don't know if not deer count as cryptids. So please let me know if I need to move this post. Last summer, I had been sitting under a railroad bridge, where a creek surrounded by woods is easily accessible. As I was sitting on this creek, I began to hear what I thought was a cat coming from the left of where I sat. I am a huge cat person, and I love animals. So naturally I made my way over there to check if something was there. There was nothing. So I just made my way back to the area I put my stuff at. And sat back down. However, the noises continued. And were actually louder this time. I looked around and made eye contact with a strange-looking deer. I see deer all the time. My rural town is quiet enough for deer to not bat an eye at crossing close to houses or facilities. This deer looked so weird though. It was a darker color and sounded like it had something in its nose. It made some kind of ticking sound. So that is why I assumed something was in its nose. I don't even know how to describe its face. It looked warped and its eyes were almost human-like. But it looked like a malformed deer, so it made me very uncomfortable. When I got up to get a closer look, it ran. I tried following it, but it had just disappeared. The direction it went in led to an open field. So I would have seen it. I'm not entirely new to strange happenings or stories like this, as my town has its own urban legend attached to it. Was this some deer with CWD or something? I am a bit of a skeptic myself to things like this, which is why I am so interested in them. Here's a comment from this post. Tangy Monarch commented. Sounds like CWD. It can make deer behave irrationally and cause all sorts of malformations. It's also been known to discolor eyes. That or it's determined your soul isn't ready for harvesting yet. I live in the lower parts of Michigan, in a small township. Around my town, there are little trails you can follow that can lead into deep forest, or to act as a quick route to the other part of town. A couple of days ago, I was on the trail to go into the deeper part of the woods. The sun had already set, and I was using my flashlight for lighting. While on my bike, I had this sitting area. A tree that's branch resembled a swing. I was putting my bike closer to the tree, when I made eye contact. Or at least I think it was its eyes. With a creature? I didn't see much of its body, but I saw the face. It had a skull with thickish antlers. I probably stayed in my position for like 5 minutes. Until the thing screeched. I bolted it with my bike and returned home. I say possible Wendigo encounter, because I'm not sure exactly if it was even an Wendigo. Can someone explain WTH I made eye contact with? Here are a couple of comments from this post. Tubular Prod 1776 commented. If it was, you should be happy to be alive. Mitka01 also commented. I saw a Wendigo up near Saginaw. Camping out in the woods, it attacked and possessed me. I gotta tell the story on a few choice YouTube channels. But I'm trucking too much. They're out there and it's a mixed bag of shapeshifters, dark shadows, disembodied deer or skinwalkers. The one I saw acted like a pissed off buck. But when it attacked, it was a red-eyed monster straight from hell. Flaming effing eyes, bro. Got exorcised? On a greyhound back home. And 90% alright after that. But yeah. Stay out of the woods, and never be in areas with dark, depressing, sad, or evil vibes. They paralyze before they attack. And they'll missing 411 a mother blanker quick. If you're in the wrong area. Also watch for teepee. A frame bent tree. Broken trees. Oddly placed items. Or small stick structures. They love piquing your curiosity to lure you in. Then human mutilation after that. So yeah, no more camping in Michigan for me, thanks. Are you enjoying the encounters so far? If yes, hit the like button. If you want to see more in our Cryptid, or any of our other series, hit the subscribe button, and the notification bell, to never miss a future video. If you would like to support this channel, and have more access to me and your fellow community members, join our Discord. Here you can submit your own encounter, have early access to videos, and so much more. Link is in the description. Share in the comments what you think of the encounters discussed so far. I recently moved to a decent-sized plot of land in northeast Kentucky. I went out to check on the chickens with my dog Luna. I noticed the chicken coop needs some repairs. After the recent heavy winds, heard some noises in the woods, but didn't think anything of it. Called out Luna, and we went inside. Came back out with my tools. And as I'm fixing to starting driving screws in, I hear my own voice yell out Luna. From up in the woods. I'm familiar with skinwalkers, Wendigos, and the sort. But in northeast Kentucky. Here's some of the comments from this post. Stampch commented. If we want to be more realistic and stray away from supernatural stuff, it's likely a raven. They can often mimic voices and are intelligent. Since we're on this sub, there's a shot it was a Sasquatch who've been reported to mimic voices before. If it was a Bigfoot, you're likely in or close to their territory. And they recognize a new human they haven't seen before. Mimicking your voice doesn't sound hostile to me, just curious. Leave some fruit out. You definitely want them to know you're friendly. Cryptid responded to Stampy. Raven. Or any number of other bird species that participates in biomimicry. OP responded to Stampy. And that's what I thought? Which is why I checked all the treetops around. I didn't see any, but I could have missed them for sure. Peaceful Teacher also commented. I also have heard a story of Dogman mimicking voices, as well as playing a female in trouble. Scary story. I think hearing your own voice or someone you know is the creepiest. Grey mares in space clarified. Skinwalkers and Wendigos are not cryptids. YouTube effed that all up. Sasquatch is known to mimic quite a bit. And they love Kentucky. Ugly Tattoo Betty supplied. Kentucky Wildman. They can mimic. Stories of encounters with them are terrifying. Info for SW also chimed in. I live in a small town in the south. With a decent plot of land also. Never had too many crazy experiences. Though I have heard my own voice say something I didn't say sometimes. I'd ask some locals if they've heard anything. Maybe someone has some stories. Bucky, 8, asked. What time of day was it? OP responded to Bucky 8. It was around sunset. Secret Parsnip 5071 chimed in. Dogmen and Sasquatch have also been known to mimic voices, but usually it doesn't sound the same. It will sound lower usually, from reports. This is not my story, but a story my grandmother told me. In the early 1980s, my grandma was driving her pickup truck in a rural town in North Carolina, with a friend on a back road with no street lights. It was out in the country, along a stretch of road with almost no houses. Back roads with woods in every direction type of deal. They came around a curve, and went over the railroad track. It was very dark, and the only light was the reflection of the moon, and the headlights from the truck, as she slowed down to cross over the tracks. She said she and her friend saw what looked like a part man, part goat hybrid, standing on the edge of the road, in the woods, illuminated by the headlights. It had the head of a human, with horns, and was standing upright, on its hind legs, with hooves for feet. She said if she had to guess, it was at least 7 to 8 feet tall, based on how it looked next to the trees. It had the upper torso of a man, but she described it as so evil looking, to the point that it almost didn't look human. My grandma told her friend to shut and lock the slide window of the truck. That went to the bed, because she was worried it could have jumped in the back of the bed. About a month later, my grandma was riding with my grandpa, in the same pickup truck, traveling along another rural country road, heading towards Highway 109. My grandma was asleep, but my grandpa woke her up and let her know that he saw a man-goat creature on the side of the road, and described the same thing. This was about 50 miles away from the first sighting, and my grandma hadn't told him about the original sighting, so he wasn't lying or joking with her. Has anyone ever experienced anything like this before or have any similar stories? Hi everyone. First time posting and on mobile. So sorry if the formatting is subpar. I recently joined r/paranormal. After reading some of your experiences, I wanted to share my own, to see if I could get your opinions on what me and my family saw in the Black Hills of South Dakota. About 5 years ago, when I was 17, I visited some of my family, who lived in South Dakota, and worked there for the summer. After about a month, my brother, sister, and her husband decided to do what Americans do best, and go shoot guns in the woods. I had to work an evening shift, so it was decided we'd go after, around 10 p.m. Once my shift ended, we went to their house to pack up the truck with some snacks, guns, and ammo. The drive took around 45 minutes, and it took us up a dirt road surrounded by trees and tall grass. Eventually, it opened up into a clearing that was pretty open and flat. The nearest tree line was about 100 feet away. It was pretty dark, but the clearing was lit up by the truck's headlights. I kinda felt uneasy, but I chalked that up to just being in the woods at night. For the first 20 minutes nothing really happened. We were just setting up plastic bottles and those plastic gallon buckets you'd get water out of at an office. There was a feeling of being watched that we all felt. The area suddenly reeked of spoiled eggs. Those of you who have shot guns know they can smell. But, even since going the military, no amount of guns explosions have smelt this bad. We looked around to see if we could see the source. And what I saw I can still vividly remember, to this day. What I saw was a thin, humanoid figure crouching down looking at us. Even while crouching down, it was still about 6 feet in height. When I say this figure was thin, I mean skin and bones barely do it justice. The even weirder thing about this was, we all saw the figure in different spots in the tree line, but we all described the same features. Tall, thin, had long dark hair. We quickly packed up what we could and left. The feeling of dreading felt that day will forever haunt me. Since then, my brother mentioned the area might have been in native territory. But I don't know how if that's true. Every once in a while, I think back on that day, and I look up different stories and encounters people have in woods. But nothing quite resembles what I saw that day. Here's some comments from this post. OK Manufacturer 5017 commented. Have you heard of Taku? He has a similar description to what you described, and was said to be known to roam the Black Hills back in the day. Delicious Fortune 83 asked. I'm not sure about how many details you saw, but did you notice if it had a coned head and elongated arms? OP responded to Delicious Fortune 83. Arms looked elongated, as in disproportionate to its frame. I don't think I saw an elongated or coned head. Sharp Ground 6720 also commented. That's really weird, because I just seen a report in the Missing Persons Forum that like 30 people have gone missing in South Dakota since New Year's Day. Less than a month ago? Mostly teens. Even though your encounter was years ago, it could still have something to do with current disappearances. OP responded to Sharp Ground 6720. My brother used to work near Rapid City as a paramedic and told me stories about people going missing around those parts all the time. Probably not connected, but that's scary to think about if they are. OKKJ responded to Sharp Ground 6720. I just saw that too. Mostly from Rapid City and Sioux Falls. Something like that should be getting more news coverage than it is. Scout Sadie responded to OKKJ. Sioux Falls is at the other end of the state, not in the Black Hills. There are over 100 comments to this post. If you would like to dig deeper, the link is in the description. Hey Reddit. I've always been one for scary stories. But last night, technically this morning, I had one of the scariest experiences of my life. I'm not sold that it's paranormal. I would just like some extra opinions. Also, I'm on mobile, so sorry for format issues. So as a little background and explanation. My girlfriend and I had our first date at an abandoned cemetery. And since then we've been exploring forgotten resting sites around us. Usually this goes the way you expect. Nerves get to us and before you know it we're giggling about ghosts in a pitch black cemetery. But this time was different. I think I'd be more open to chalking this up to nerves if we hadn't spent the last while exploring and walking through admittedly much scarier places. Around 1 am, my girlfriend and I decided we were bored. She wanted gas station nachos, and I wanted a slushie. And since we were already going to be out, we decided F it. And looked into cemeteries nearby. My girlfriend finally settled on an old Catholic burial ground, where her family has a few plots. It was only 15 minutes away and seemed like a great idea. To get to the cemetery, we had to take the expressway to an old state route that went through the woods. We were joking around and talking about how you shouldn't look in the woods, along with just general amazement at the natural beauty, as we passed waterfalls and these really beautiful rock formations. Eventually, we got to the gates. A small turnoff on the right side of the road, which we missed the first time. This is where the weird stuff happens. So, turning into the cemetery and passing through the gates, my girlfriend and I immediately felt sick. She described it as feeling like she was poisoned. The cemetery is small as hell, with one road that stretches from the front gates down about 300 feet. Before hitting a small loop, we drove down and around the loop, questioning if we should stay and try to find her family's graves, or if we should just go. I'm stupid and curious, so I told her she can stay in the car and I'll go find the graves. She reluctantly agreed and sat in the car, scanning our surroundings. I'll try to make a diagram of what the area we were in looked like. But imagine a small cemetery, with maybe 25 feet of graves either direction. We were at the end of the rows of graves. To the right, about 30 feet, is the gate and road home. And to the right, about 15 to 20 feet, is pitch black woods. I get out of the car and walk a few feet, before almost stepping on my girlfriend's great-grandfather's headstone, With this discovery, I walked back to the car to tell her I found the graves. And that I was going to look for her sister's grave. She agreed and continued watching me from the car. As I walked to the right for a little bit, scanning the ground for the headstone. I was wearing a pair of boots. And the ground was damp, so I could kind of hear my footsteps, if that makes any sense. I'd put my foot down and not even a second after, I'd hear this clicking tapping sound. Almost like hitting your fingernail off something metal. But also nowhere close to that. I walked back to the car, when I realized the grave wouldn't be in that area. Just to update her and told her to leave the car unlocked. I felt this intense compulsion to walk deeper into the cemetery. Towards the woods. As I was walking away from the car, I kept seeing this shadowy cat-like figure. Like it literally just looked like a house cat. In the middle of the cemetery. I love cats, and so on top of the weird compulsion to get closer to the woods, I also figured I could make a feline friend out of it. I got maybe 20 feet away from the car, before the clicking noise would get both faster and closer. I decided to shine my flashlight towards the woods on my left. Just in case it was a wild animal. But instead, all I saw was pure darkness in the middle of my flashlight beam. I backed up 2 paces slowly, before the black mass moved. It moved like someone put its joints together wrong. I bolted. Running faster than my girlfriend ever thought I could run. She took off before I had even closed my door. While I cried in fear. Trying and failing to get my seatbelt on. My stomach felt like it was stuck to the inside of my skin. On the way home, my girlfriend told me her side of the story. How she was scanning the landscape from left to right. And every time she had to look into the woods, she felt like there was going to be something there. We've been trying to rationalize it. Maybe it was just a wild animal, but I'm a pretty experienced hiker. And know our local wildlife well. That thing didn't look like any animal I've ever seen or heard. Maybe it was just my brain playing tricks, trying to find something that isn't there. But my girlfriend thinking there's something in the woods is kind of making me reconsider. The thing with the cat is weird as well. I know feral cats are tanks, but how one could survive the Pennsylvania winter. In the middle of the woods. Where it could be easy prey. Only to end up in a cemetery with next to no resources. i.e. shelter, water, noticeable food. Is strange. I'm incredibly curious about what it could have been. This story is from my girlfriend's perspective. And she still, to this day, has no idea what she encountered. So to begin. This story happened back in 2018. I arrived in this small, rural town near Cape May. The company I was working for, at the time, was sending me out to go door to door, advertising cable and Wi-Fi that they wanted me to sell. I was getting weird vibes all throughout the day. As the town itself was very small and a bit creepy. With people staring at me. Or giving me the cold shoulder, for the entire day. It seemed like a lot of the townsfolk that I encountered that day were on edge. And it was a weird, tense atmosphere that I shrugged off. As people are weird all the time. I continued doing my job. Chugging a Red Bull, to keep me going. Which didn't affect me at all, surprisingly. Besides the weird atmosphere. The scenery was actually quite pretty, once you got off of the main road. I had to stop at different streets. And some were in the woods, on long and seemingly beautiful endless roads. It was quite scenic. Just before sunset, I was scheduled to visit a few houses on a small peninsula. To get to this peninsula, you had to go down a very long road. Past a summer camp area. Past a trailer park. Past the woods. And then you finally find yourself in a small open area with a bay marsh. A couple small expensive houses. And shore access. The houses were so close to the water, it seemed to be a code violation. But I'm sure they were built to withstand storms, since they looked so expensive. Every house had its own theme. And the area was mostly deserted. Only one house had someone inside. Whom I had talked to after knocking on his door. I was so distracted, looking at the houses and scenery, that I didn't notice how fast sunset was approaching. I came to the realization that I should start heading back. To avoid being alone on that long deserted pathway, in the woods. As a smaller female, I'm never comfortable after dark. In isolated places. Especially without cell service. I was making my way down the path. So far so good, as it wasn't completely dark yet. As I approached the wooded area of the road, I was walking a bit faster, since there were no street lights and the sunlight was rapidly disappearing. As I walked at a decently fast pace, I noticed something. The woods were eerily quiet. All the life that I was hearing before was gone. No crickets. No birds. Just pure silence. I stopped in my tracks. And got chills down my spine, as I felt the feeling that I was being watched. I looked around the dark woods for any sudden movements, and then, like clockwork, something up ahead made its way out of the tree line. It looked to be some type of large animal. My brain went into overdrive, analyzing whatever this animal was. Was it a bear? A dog? No. It looked like a large dog. But, dogs don't get this big. Though I was intimidated by its large size. Whatever it was hadn't noticed me. Even though I was scared, I also didn't want to walk back and go into that one man's house. As a woman, I would rather take my chances with a wild animal, than be alone with a man I don't know. In a deserted holiday neighborhood. Suddenly, as I was thinking this, the large animal, in the distance, had finally noticed my presence. It was observing me, not entirely sure of what to do with me. There wasn't enough light anymore for me to see the animal's face, but I felt unusually frightened. Whatever I was looking at was definitely too big to be a black bear. With a shoulder height of at least 5 feet, on all fours. Which is comparable in size to a brown bear. The mass on this creature was extensive. As the outline of what I could see looked like a wolf on steroids. It was very muscular. I also noticed that the outline of its face was very similar to that of a German shepherd or a wolf. As it had perked ears and a long snout. In the heat of the moment, I could only hear the sound of my heart palpitating, as fear and adrenaline started to crawl its way into my bloodstream. It felt as if time stood still, and then it dawned on me. What I was looking at wasn't a normal animal. And it was simply too big to be any animal that I could recognize from New Jersey's catalogue of fauna. And, if it wanted to attack me, I would be powerless against it. It was simply too big. Though, to calm myself down, I threw the idea that this creature was out of the ordinary out. Because I felt like this could be rationalized somehow. I made my brain go back to the idea of this being maybe being a large dog or coyote. I also did not believe in cryptids. And was completely unaware of what size coyote are supposed to be. So I made a quick decision. Realizing that this could very well be a life or death situation. I came to the conclusion that this very large dog-like creature was probably a skittish coyote. That I could scare off. At least, temporarily. To calm down my nerves. What other choice did I have? The longer I kept standing there, the more aggressive I might come across to this animal. And I didn't want it to get territorial or get the idea that I was easy prey. So, I decided I would make the most hideous, loud, confusing, and startling scream howl I could muster. And just sprint the rest of the way. After I screeched this hideous sound out of my body, as hard as I could, the animal quickly changed its body language to defensive. But then it quickly changed its mind to deciding I wasn't worth a fight. As it ran a decent distance into the woods. Not too far though. I decided to sprint as fast as I could. Past that area and beyond. I sprinted until I reached the end of the road. And noticed there was a summer camp area with street lights near me. I rested on top of a table there. Out of breath and feeling my heart pound out of my chest. However, I was still very shaken up. And still felt like I was being watched. I kept my eyes on the tree line. My eyes were darting around, looking for any sign this animal was still there. Once I felt like the coast was clear. I located the next house I was scheduled to visit, and I quickly made my way over. I met a nice family, who ended up buying cable from me. And I told them what had happened to me that night, and how I was treated by the locals. The lady of the family, who I presumed to be the mother, said, "I don't know why they sent you out here alone. These woods are dangerous after dark. And there are creepy people who live around here." The impression she was giving me was that there were animal encounters she couldn't explain. And that there were lots of ex-convicts in the area. And people who should have been arrested, but haven't been. She was equally concerned about the people, as she was the animals around this place. This gave me goosebumps. How many times today could my life have been taken? They were extremely concerned for my safety, and told me to contact my team leader, so I could get picked up. They said they didn't want me to go outside again, and that I should call it quits for the night, and not make it to any other houses. Till this day, I still have no idea what creature I had encountered. There are strange things in the woods. Things people don't speak about or cover up. I felt like the townsfolk of that town knew something about what I encountered. So, weird creature I encountered in those woods, let's never meet again. Here's some comments from this post. Peaked at 22 commented, "Great story. I'm from Philly, and used to summer there as a child. In the 70s and 80s. Never would have imagined DM there." Jacob Howell 795 also commented, "Your girlfriend most likely encountered a dogman. I can't be 100% sure. There was not enough information. I would be happy to go into further detail, if you would like. I have had several encounters with these creatures, and might be able to offer some help." Purple Sippin responded to Jacob Howell 795. "Well, it's kind of a long story. So basically, what would happened? I lived in a house, with my family, in a small mountain town in North Carolina. We lived there for about 15 years, everything was great until the last 2 years. When it decided to show up. My first encounter with it, was when I was going to the woods. At the back of my property and getting some firewood. We were having a bonfire. I walked out about 50 feet, in the woods, maybe a little more. And I noticed the woods were really quiet, and then I noticed this really odd smell. That's when I saw it. It was about 7.5 to 8 feet tall. Jet black with amber-colored eyes. It looked at me with intelligence, that I've never seen in any other creature. Except for dogmen. I knew what this was as soon as I saw it, as I have had several encounters before. I believe that day, I just went back to the house and locked the doors. And told everybody to get inside. The next couple of years, it kept harassing us. It got to the point where my 2 dogs, I have a German Shepherd and a Pit Bull, refused to go outside several nights a week. It would come to the door, and tap on the windows, and try to get in. It never did, but eventually the stress just got too much for us, and we decided to move. Relentless 1111 responded to Jacob Howell 795. "Oh my god. That's literally my worst nightmare. That thing tapping on the window sounds absolutely horrifying." Biloxi Red responded to Jacob Howell 795. "What did you all do when this thing was tapping on your windows?" Jacob Howell 795 responded to Biloxi Red. "We really didn't do anything. Because I knew that it was just trying to get me to come out. Normally, what we would do is we would go to the den, in the middle of the house, which had no windows. This has been a crazy ride, and I'll bring you any updates in future videos. If you've stuck with me until the end, you're amazing. If you want to catch more episodes in the Cryptid series, or any of my other series, hit the subscribe button and the notification bell to never miss a future video. If you enjoyed this content, smash the like button and leave a comment down below. If you would like to support this channel, and be a part of a growing community, we have a Discord server. Check out the link in the description. You can also submit your own encounters, and have more access to me and your fellow community members. Join the community. Until next time, be safe out there. You never know what you might find.